Hello and welcome back to my channel. So today you'll be learning another lesson, and that is the woman on platform 8. So let's begin. It was my second year at boarding school and I was sitting on platform number 8 at Ambala station waiting for the northbound train. I think I was about 12 at the time. My parents considered me old enough to travel alone and I had arrived by bus at Ambala early in the evening. Now there was a wait till midnight before my train arrived. Most of the time I had been pacing up and down the platform, browsing at the bookstall or feeding broken biscuits to stray dogs. Trains came and went, and the platform would be quiet for a while, and then, when a train arrived, it would be an inferno of heaving, shouting, agitated human bodies. As the carriage doors opened, a tide of people would sweep down upon the nervous little ticket collector at the gate, and every time this happened, I would be caught in the rush and swept outside the station. Now tired of this game and of ambling about the platform, I sat down on my suitcase and gazed dismally across the railway tracks. So here the story begins with a boy who was in his second year at the boarding school, and he was about to go to the boarding school, and he was sitting on a platform number 8 at the Ambala station, and he was waiting for his train. He was of the age 12 at that time, and his parents had considered that he was quite old enough to travel alone, and he was all alone there, and he had arrived at the Ambala station by bus, and his train was about to be there by midnight, so he had to stay there. So he reached there early in the evening and he was just waiting in the platform for the train, and most of the time he was just browsing at the bookstalls or feeding broken biscuits to the stray dogs, and sometimes even pacing up and down the platform, that is moving. And the trains came and went, and the platform would be filled with people shouting, and complete pack of people. And immediately as the train would go, it would be complete silence. So as the trains would come, the people would come in a huge number, and this boy would be pushed away from the platform because of the crowd, and immediately as soon as the train would leave, he would come back to the platform, and this was going on repeatedly, and finally he was tired of it and he sat down on his suitcase and he was just looking at the railway tracks. "Are you alone, my son?" asked a soft voice close behind me. I looked up and saw a woman standing near me. She was leaning over, and I saw a pale face and dark, kind eyes. She wore no jewels and was dressed very simply in a white sari. "Yes, I am going to school," I said, and stood up respectfully. She seemed poor, but there was a dignity about her that commanded respect. "I have been watching you for some time," she said. "Didn't your parents come to see you off?" A soft voice is heard by this boy, and somebody asked him a question. "Are you all alone, my son?" And he looked up to see who it was, and it was a woman standing near him, and she was leaning or bending towards him, and she had a pale face and dark, kind eyes, and she wore no jewels, and she was dressed in a very simple white sari. So he stands up with respect towards her and he says, "Yes, I'm going to school." And he did not stand just because she was poor or something. He stood because there was some kind of respect towards her. So the woman says, "I have been watching you from some time. Didn't your parents come to see you off? Are you all alone?" "I don't live here," I said. "I had to change trains. Anyway, I can travel alone." "I am sure you can," she said. And I liked her for saying that, and I also liked her for the simplicity of her dress and for her deep, soft voice and the serenity of her face. "Tell me, what is your name?" she asked. "Arun," I said. "And how long do you have to wait for your train?" "About an hour, I think. It comes at 12 o'clock. Then come with me and have something to eat." So the boy says, I don't live here. I had to change trains. I came from a different place. And anyway, I can travel all alone. I'm old enough. So the woman says, yes, I am sure you can. And immediately this boy liked her because she had that kind of respect towards this boy, and also there was kind of simplicity in her which he really liked. Then she asked, what's your name? So he said his name is Arun. So the woman says, like, for how long have you to wait for your train? So he says it's maybe about an hour. My train comes around at 12 o'clock. So this woman says, okay, there's time, so you better come with me and have something to eat. I was going to refuse out of shyness and suspicion, but she took me by the hand, and then I felt would be silly to pull my hand away. She told a coolie to look after my suitcase, and then she led me away down the platform. Her hand was gentle, and she held mine neither too firmly nor too lightly. I looked up at her again. She was not young, and she was not old. She took me into the station dining room, ordered samosas, jalebis, and teas, and at once I began to thaw and take a new interest in this kind woman. The strange encounter had little effect on my appetite. I was a hungry schoolboy, and I ate as much as I could in as polite a manner as possible. She took obvious pleasure in watching me eat, and this cemented our friendship, for under the influence of the tea and sweets I began to talk quite freely, and told her about my school, my friends, my likes and dislikes. She questioned me quietly for some time, but preferred listening. She drew me out very well, and I had soon forgotten that we were strangers. But she did not ask me about my family or where I lived, and I did not ask her where she lived. I accepted her for what she had been to me, a quiet, kind, and gentle woman who gave sweets to a lonely boy on a railway platform. Now, this boy was about to refuse because of shyness and also suspicion because she was complete a stranger. But she took him by his hand, and she had not held his hand too tightly or too softly or too lightly. It was in a proper form, and he thought that now if I pull my hand it would be silly. She may think that I am such a stupid person. So he didn't do anything, he went with her. And she had ordered or told a coolie, a worker there, to look after his suitcase. Now this boy looked at her again, and he realized that she's not too old and she's not too young also. They went to the station dining room, and she ordered some samosas, jalebis and tea. And this boy immediately he started eating it up. He was a very hungry boy. And the woman was just smilingly looking at him, and that kind of created a wonderful friendship between them. And this boy he started talking to her very freely, and he started telling her about the school, his friends, his likes, his dislikes, and this woman would listen to him completely, and sometimes she would ask some questions, but more she would listen to him. And this boy started liking her even more, and he felt maybe we are not strangers anymore. But she did not ask him anything about his family or where he lived, and even the boy didn't ask her where she lived. They had accepted a wonderful friendship immediately. We walked together in silence until we reached the place where I had left my suitcase. One of my school fellows, Satish, a boy of about my age, had turned up with his mother. "Hello, Arun," he called. "The train's coming in late as usual. Did you know we have a new headmaster this year?" We shook hands, and then he turned to his mother and said, "This is Arun, mother. He is one of my friends and the best bowler in the class." "I am glad to know that," said his mother, a large, imposing woman who wore spectacles. She looked at the woman who held my hand and said, "And I suppose you are Arun's mother." I opened my mouth to make some explanation, but before I could say anything, the woman replied, "Yes, I am Arun's mother." I was unable to speak a word. I looked quickly up at the woman, but she did not appear to be at all embarrassed and was smiling as Satish's mother. Then they walked in silence till they reached the place of where he had left the suitcase, and immediately there was a boy named Satish who was one of his classmates, and he had come there with his mother, and he saw Arun and he shouted at him and he said, "Hey, hello Arun, the train is late again as usual, and did you know that we are going to have a new headmaster this year?" So he shook hands with him and then he turned to his mother and then he said to his mother, "Mother, this is Arun. He's my classmate and he's also my friend and he's the best bowler in our class." So Satish's mother replied, "I'm glad to know that." She was happy and she wore specs. She looked at the woman who held my hand. That woman was still holding Arun's hand, and she looked at her and she said, "Maybe you are Arun's mother." But before Arun would speak anything, she replied saying, "Yes, I am Arun's mother." So Arun was unable to speak. He looked quickly at the woman. He didn't know what to say. But that woman did not look as if she was embarrassed. She was normal. And she was smiling at Sati's mother. I do hope you have understood the lesson till now. The next part will be continued in the next video. Until then, keep watching for more videos and do subscribe to my channel. Thank you and stay safe.